Okay, we're going to start with some true or false on Friday night, April 25th. Welcome to the show. It's Fantasy Football Today. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg. Okay, true or false, you could make a compelling case for any of the 4 running backs that went in day 2 to be drafted first among that group.
Yes. Fact. True.
Agree. Yes. Quinshon Judkins on the agree-o-meter. Quinshon Judkins to the Browns, 36th overall. His backfield mate, TreVeyon Henderson, to the Patriots, 38th overall. Harvey to the Broncos, 60th overall. Kaleb Johnson to the Steelers, 83rd overall. Kind of love that one too, right? Your big back, first and second down guy.
I think, not that they're going to be drafted in the same spots as these guys, but like you got to be thrilled for DeAndre Swift and Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams. I mean, like their situation's got a lot better. I would imagine like one of those teams is going to sign J.K. Dobbins. One of those teams is going to sign Nick Chubb. But they, we were talking about Ashton Genty to the Jaguars at 5, maybe the Bears at 10, and those two teams didn't take a running back yet. And now you have Dallas without a rookie there as well. Like it's a little mind-boggling.
Dallas is never going to draft a running back ever again.
They've been so burned by the Ezekiel Elliott pick.
The contract probably more than anything else. The pick was good. The contract they gave him not so good. But I just feel like we've been waiting for years.
Yeah. Tight end, true or false? You could make a case for any of the 3 tight ends that went on round 2, not Harold Fannin Jr. to the Browns, not this year. But you can make a case for any of the other 3, Mason Taylor to the Jets, Terrance Ferguson to the Rams, Elijah Arroyo to the Seahawks.
False.
Make a case for what?
To be number 1 of that trio.
Of that trio?
Yeah.
Oh, true.
I think I would expand it to be number 1 overall for not dynasty, just redraft for 2025.
False.
Yeah, I would say false. We had this conversation last night as well. I think you're hoping that the talent of the 2 guys that were drafted in the first round, especially the capital that was spent on them, should carry them through, even if it's not the best situations for either of them.
I just wish Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren had gone to the Rams or the Seahawks, but it's Ferguson and Arroyo instead. All right, and then do I have one for the wide receivers? The wide receivers, let's see. We had Jayden Higgins go to the Texans, Luther Burden to the Bears, Trey Harris to the Chargers, Jack Bech to the Raiders, Kyle Williams to the Patriots. I don't think anyone else has even a. Oh, I did not even see Ty Felton was the 102nd pick to the Broncos to the Vikings. Pardon me.
GPT's Vikings. I got one for you.
Yeah.
A day 2 wide receiver should be ranked ahead in redraft of a day 1 wide receiver, excluding Ibuka, because in redraft Ibuka is not going to be a popular pick.
I'll say false.
Jamie.
Oh yeah, I would take Bech over a couple guys.
Over Golden or McMillan or Hunter?
I'm sorry. Well, I mean Ibuka, but Golden and Ibuka.
I would take Trey Harris over Golden. I'm a big Jack Bech guy, so I could be talked into Bech over Golden as well.
This is really interesting. Okay, that's high praise for Trey Harris and Jack Bech. By the way, I think I've got an unofficial number. I tried to do this during the draft. Over the last 10 years, I believe we have had 11 wide receivers drafted day 2 or 3, so round 2 or later, who have finished as top 24 wide receivers in fantasy. I would really maybe look at it as 10 instead of 11 because Tyreek Hill was one of those guys. He had about 280 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, something like that. He wouldn't have done it without the rushing. So let's say on average, 1 a year finishes top 24. 4 day 2 wide receivers in the last decade have finished top 12 in at least one format. Those 4 were Michael Thomas, Puka Nacua, Ladd McConkey, and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown only in non-PPR. Those are the only ones who were like absolute stars as rookies. All right. So it was It was exactly, I think, what we expected. It was more interesting. It's always a little bit more interesting than day one, right? The running backs come off the board and you have 2 rounds. That helps. So let's get some big fantasy winners and losers. Jamie, you gave us the winners yesterday. So Dave, why don't you give us some fantasy winners and losers? Can be rookies or veterans from day 2.
I think all of the rookies ended up in good spots. Some of them have potential to be in great spots. Let's start with Harvey going to Denver. The competition for playing time there isn't that great. I was a little surprised at how soon they took him, but he's a great speedster. He's sudden. He's got upside with his hands. Sean Payton does his thing. And it's guys like Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime for now, as far as competition goes. So I'm digging Harvey as someone who could be very, very good for fantasy. But I think TreVeyon Henderson is right there with him. His competition is Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. I think at minimum he can take over that passing downs role. And as soon as Ramondre Stevenson fumbles, it's going to be the TreVeyon Henderson show potentially. He is a different type of running back than what Mike Vrabel is used to in Tennessee, obviously, but I think he's very talented. So I could see him having a monster year. Quinshon Judkins sharing with Jerome Ford, but other than that, it's a great opportunity in Cleveland. Same exact thing for Kaleb Johnson in Pittsburgh, sharing with Jalen Warren. I like a lot of these guys. I think they all landed in good spots. I do wish at least one of them had gone to Chicago or Dallas. We talked about that, but this is promising, and this is what we were hoping for when we were talking about these guys before the draft, that they would go to teams where they'd get good opportunities.
I mean, there's so much to like here. RJ Harvey going to the Broncos. They throw to their running backs so much. They throw to their running backs on first and second down a lot. So that's going to give him a big edge in PPR over probably a guy like Quinshon Judkins. And definitely over, I would think anyway, over Kaleb Johnson in Pittsburgh, although Arthur Smith does have a history of being sometimes his offense is very much target running backs. Sometimes they don't. So it's, it could be personnel based. One thing
both guys last year had over 30 receptions in Harris and Warren.
Yeah, but that's not great. But overall, their running back target rate was pretty high. I think. I wanted to look up RJ Harvey's goal line stats because that would worry me just going to Denver. Like, did they just give it to Estime? But Harvey was great near the goal line. He scored 15 touchdowns on 20 carries in his career from the 3-yard line or closer. That is really terrific number there. All right. Any veteran winners that Jamie you might want to add?
I mean, I mentioned the guys that didn't get competition so far, so those were pretty telling. I think we're still going to see some guys that are out there, Scattaboo, for example, Dillon Sampson, for example, there are guys out there that are still going to be some, quality running backs, that have a chance to, obviously wreck some backfields. But the fact that, we're heading into day 3, round 4, and Dallas doesn't have competition for Javonte Williams, aside from Miles Sanders, but no rookie. That Chicago did not draft anybody. That Jacksonville is keeping their backfield so far intact. Like, those backfields are looking better for the veterans there. It's again, easily to replace a couple of those guys. But we could see, Javonte in a great spot, for example, or DeAndre Swift still in a great spot with an offense that is looking very, very good for Chicago. With what they did offensively. Head coach through free agency, through the draft. Trying to think of like the other positions, because it's easy just to look at the running backs and say other veteran winners. I mean, look, Caleb Williams just got even better today. Like, we thought yesterday was good. He got better on day 2 with Luther Burden going there. So not great for the receivers overall, but another weapon to add to what could be one of the best breakout quarterbacks going into year 2. Trying to think any of the receivers.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think you could look at a guy like Cortland Sutton. They didn't add major wide receiver competition. You could look at Jackson
Harrison and McBride.
Harrison McBride for sure. JSN, they added Elijah Arroyo, but I don't really think that's going to affect JSN.
No. Yep.
And I like Trey Harris, but the Chargers added nothing that's going to take anything away from McConkey in the short range.
No, but they did help Justin Herbert from a win perspective.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And a deep ball perspective. Trey Harris can really stretch the field.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I got so much. We all have so much to say about this class. It's so interesting, right? I mean, it's just, all right. You know what? We'll get into it. I thought that you guys, like the Luther Burden going to the Bears. Sorry, I'm all over the place. But Luther Burden going to the Bears. I think about the amount of targets that Keenan Allen had last year, right? Like they are playing 3 receivers all the time. So does he just slot into that slot role? And does this suck for Colson Loveland, who they drafted in the first round yesterday? So let's go to the losers. Let me transition to losers. Dave, are the Bears pass catchers losers with this Luther Burden pick, 39th overall in the second round?
No, I think Luther Burden will not have much on his shoulders this year. I think he can certainly contribute on teams, and I think that he can be a good screen option and short area target guy and take a couple of deep shots. His speed definitely. My son is a Bears fan, and he insists that Luther Burden is going to play in the JMO role because he's comparing. Everybody does it with the Detroit offense and what Ben Johnson ran. I kind of see it potentially going that way, but not consistently enough. I view Loveland and Burden as 2 quick hitting type of targets for Caleb Williams to get the ball out of his hands faster than he did last year. And that's going to be job 1 for Ben Johnson. They're going to scheme up plays so that ball is out in a second and a half. And they're going to ask Loveland and Burden to make plays after the catch, and I love it. And it won't just be those 2 guys. We saw DJ Moore do it last year. But they can also expand. Loveland and Burden can expand on that and have an ADOT that's not -1. They can have an ADOT that's like 6-7 yards downfield. But I think to start, they're going to be getting short area targets. I think Burden will be brought along slower than Loveland. I still think we're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets in Chicago and not as many 3 receiver sets as we saw last year.
So this was in Athlon Sports this morning. Jared Goff had the 5th most dropbacks with 2 tight ends on the field last year with 169 snaps. Caleb Williams, and obviously this is a Ben Johnson thing. Caleb Williams last year, despite his flaws, he was 47 of 75 for 452 yards, 132 air yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 90.5 last year when they were in 2 tight end sets.
That's not good, though. It's not that good. It's probably better than what he was, but
it's better than what he was. And I think if you're Ben Johnson and you're identifying what you like to do and what maybe is going to help your young quarterback get the ball out quickly, as Dave just alluded to, some quick area targets, you now added 2 of those guys. And so you're looking at it as, we keep saying, okay, who's going to play the St. Brown role? Who's going to be the slot receiver for the Bears? It's going to be a little bit of a different version of what the Lions offense is. It's not going to be exactly the same because the personnel is clearly different. And so they just added 2 pieces. Now, the thing that makes you nervous when a new coach, especially an offensive coach, comes in and he's looking at things and they have a guy that they just gave a big contract to in DJ Moore and a guy that they spent a 1st-round pick on. Again, it's the same regime up at top, but it's a different coach. Does he not like one of those 2 guys in particular? And so does he identify as Loveland as a replacement for Allen, as something that he can replace Cole Kmet with, as a future piece that they're just going to build around, but really more for Burden? Is this more of a telltale sign of DJ Moore or Rome Odunze, which is probably the more scary one, that these guys aren't going to be the type of players that we hope they could be? And so that's the concern for me, is that is the 2 pass catchers being brought in to maybe overshadow the guys who we think are a little bit better, or at least going into the draft process. So
nothing that you've said makes me feel good about Rome Odunze. I just, I think the good thing is he and Luther Burden are very different players. You can't just put Luther Burden in Rome Odunze's spot on the field and expect the same thing. Luther Burden is a slot guy, and Odunze is like a big physical outside receiver. But I mean, I think when you look at a lot of day 2 picks, they just don't have that big of an impact as rookies. A lot of them don't do it, but like I said, a lot of them do. Like a lot of them are good. And then some of them are like, Marvin Mims, just don't really do much. I could see that from Luther Burden, make a few big plays here or there, but really not be that much of a factor. But I am wondering, you draft a tight end and a wide receiver in the first 40 picks. How are we going to get the Rome Odunze breakout? I'm not saying it won't happen, but you got to be a little less confident in it now than you were a few days ago, right?
The ceiling just got, smaller,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Or less likely,
Shorter.
maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe like the same ceiling, because it's very possible that Loveland and Burden don't have huge impacts, but it's less likely for a huge breakout. There's more obstacles to it, I think is the best way to put it, right? Unless you say, dude, they're replacing like 130 targets for Keenan Allen or whatever it was. Let's not forget that.
But you're also getting a better Kaleb Williams too. So that's the big part of this, is that hopefully his improvement just is infectious throughout the entire offense and everybody's better.
Yeah, bingo. Keenan Allen, 121 targets in 15 games. Any other losers worth bringing up real quick? Who are up against the break? You want to just fire away? We obviously like Jalen Warren, loser, but anyone else?
So I liken the Jalen Warren thing to almost like what you were talking about yesterday in your roundabout way of saying Malik Neighbors was a loser. Like Jalen Warren, I think, goes back to like 2023 Jalen Warren. Whereas, okay, he was looking like a potential huge breakout. Now that breakout is obviously limited, clearly. But can he still be what he was, which was a borderline RB2 in 2023? We averaged 11.5 PPR points per game. I think that's definitely on the table, because you're asking Kaleb Johnson to come in and replace Najee Harris, which was 299 total touches. That's a lot for a rookie, especially if he's going to get 36 catches, 47 targets, I believe is what it was. I'm guessing it's probably, if you're just again looking at the same offense, clearly quarterback's different, but coaching staff's same, like probably 200 carries, maybe 200 total touches for Kaleb Johnson in his rookie season. And Jalen Warren was, I think it was like 30 carry difference between 2023 and 2024. He missed some time in the 2 seasons. Last year played 15 games. The year before played 17. So if you're looking at what he did in 2023, I think it's a very good high-end flex, low-end RB2 that you could still get good value on now, because people are going to probably gravitate toward Kaleb Johnson, which I would. But this, I don't think, crushes his fantasy value. Like, let's say what's going to happen in Cleveland. Like, Jerome Ford is not going to be, I think, very fantasy relevant with Judkins there.
No.
All right, let's take a break. We'll take a break. Before we do that, I just want to let you know, one more day of the NFL draft, one more day of a post-game podcast. So our post-draft podcast, we'll break down. We'll have Chris Trapasso on, who knows all these prospects, and he does grades. If you go to the CBSSports.com draft tracker, he does grades for every pick and very quick little blurbs so you can learn about the player, what they do well. It's really, really helpful, because I know football fans out there, your team, your favorite team, just pick someone you've never heard of this person before, and you want to know about him real quick. Just go to CBSSports.com, look at the NFL draft tracker. Chris Trapasso is doing all these little blurbs, and he'll be on our show tomorrow to tell you who he likes and doesn't like and all that. All right, we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
They want to take this place from us.
My family is in danger. My wife is lost to me, and I don't have time.
1923, new season now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Let's get some Twitter polls going here. Who are you drafting first in a half PPR league? Quinshon Judkins of the Cleveland Browns, TreVeyon Henderson, Patriots. They went 2 picks apart. RJ Harvey, Denver, and then in the 3rd round, Kaleb Johnson to the Steelers. So who are you drafting first in a half PPR league? Quinshon Judkins on the Browns now, TreVeyon Henderson, Patriots, RJ Harvey, Broncos, Kaleb Johnson, Steelers. What would your answer be, fellas?
Judkins.
Henderson, but it's in pencil, and going to want to do a little more research before I commit to that.
And you guys are right there with the audience, who said 34% Henderson, 32% Quinshon Judkins. So they're neck and neck. I think I'm leaning RJ Harvey, actually, but not like a super strong lean. Johnson is last. RJ Harvey has 19%. Johnson has 16%. I will say, I need to say this. Over the last 10 years, I got all this data over the last 10 years. I've only got 4 running backs who were drafted in the 2nd round that got big work right out of the gate. TJ Yeldon, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor. That's it, actually. Just 3. It usually takes a little bit of time. Maybe it's just a few weeks, but a little bit of time for a day 2 running back, even in the 2nd round, to get big work. I hope one of these guys breaks that mold.
For me, that's Judkins. That's what I see is the workload.
I don't see why not with Harvey. I mean, he should be so much better than go off on an estimate.
he should. But you started 2 days ago or whatever show it was with what Sean Payton's track record is of giving running backs workloads, like the workload for running backs. It should be.
So here's the thing, right? So I went back and I actually looked at every single Josh McDaniels running back today. And he's been an offensive coordinator, I think, for 17 seasons. He's only had 3 running backs with more than 250 carries. He's very often split. Lawrence Maroney and, gosh, I don't even remember. Like, very often split. But he gets to Las Vegas. He didn't split at all. Josh Jacobs got every touch. So I think if you give the coach the right guy, like Alvin Kamara in the last season with Sean Payton, Kamara got hurt, but he was on his way to being a true workhorse. I think you give the coach the right guy. I throw all that stuff out the window, basically. But do they have that guy? I don't know.
I will say this, I haven't done my rankings. I don't know if you have, Dave, but like they're all going to be very close, for redraft. I just think there's so much upside with all of them. Like if Henderson can be that guy for the Patriots, which, the thing that's a little nerve-wracking is obviously he was sharing with a really good, backfield partner, but didn't get that type of workload in 2024 at Ohio State. And I still think they're going to give, whether you like him or not, Stevenson work. I think you brought up the fumble situation. And once he fumbles, maybe it's Stevenson's job. Maybe it's Henderson's job, in a runaway. But Harvey could easily be that guy in Denver. I just look at the path to touches right now. Like Judkins, the runway is so clear. I know Jerome Ford's done some nice things, but to me, he's clearly just a backup running back that has stepped into an opportunity at times and did okay with it, more so in 2023 than 2024. I don't know. I like the Browns offense enough with Joe Flacco. I know that sounds crazy for a 40-year-old quarterback, but I think it's going to be fun. I still think the offensive line's good. I really love Stefanski and what he does with running backs. To me, Judkins landed in as good a spot as any of these guys not named Ashton Jeanty.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a second, because I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Jerome Ford isn't an amazing back, but he knows what he's doing when he's out there, and the coaches will trust that. Judkins has to prove that. And we talked about it ad nauseum leading up to the draft, that Quinshon Judkins is not explosive. So he's going to work in that same exact type of role that Kaleb Johnson might work in with Pittsburgh, like other big backs.
I don't see that. I think Jalen Warren's a much better player than Jerome Ford.
Oh, no. I'm just trying to say what the role is going to be. I'm not trying to compare them evenly. Because I agree with you. I think Jalen Warren's better than Jerome Ford. And I think Warren can eat into Kaleb Johnson's touches a little bit. Probably a little bit more than Ford can go into Judkins. So I don't know, man. I think the guy that's got the easiest path, just strictly path, is Adam's guy, Harvey. Because the other running backs in Denver just aren't that great.
Yeah, I look, my guess is Sean Payton uses all 3 of them for a month. And Harvey will have the opportunity to prove himself. And, I don't know how great he is. RJ Harvey's been a very, very productive running back. Over 6 yards per carry, 3 straight years. He is a home run threat. He's also 24 years old. He's one of the older running backs. I like him, but he's kind of small at 5'8", 205, and he's 24 years old, so that's weird. I wanted to mention this with Harvey, because, Dave, you and I think we both said this about Harvey, or we said it about someone, but I thought the same thing about Harvey. He's one of these running backs that stutter steps a lot in the backfield. He's got that.
You said that about Hampton.
Okay, and I saw the same thing with Harvey. So
right.
I, of course, want to see every running back go to a team with a good offensive line, but Harvey in particular, because he is very patient and he sets up his blocks. The Denver Broncos had arguably the best offensive line in football last year. I'll give it to the Eagles, but ESPN had them number 1 in both run block win rate and pass block win rate. PFF had them number 1 in pass blocking, I think number 11 in run blocking. But I love that for him, that the Broncos actually have a really good offensive line, because he might be the guy who needs it, because he's kind of this patient runner, sets up his blocks.
Right, but when you say patient, usually that's a good thing. Sometimes you can be too patient, or you freeze a little bit. You stop your feet. And when you do that, that's when defenses can gang up on you, and whatever lane there might have been is gone. I do think that that's correctable. And I think any team that saw that with Hampton, and certainly what Denver saw with Harvey, I think they're going to say, well, we can correct that. He can use his patience judiciously, but he can also take off and go when we tell him to take off and go.
Would you draft any of these guys, Judkins, Henderson, Harvey, Kaleb Johnson, over Omari and Hampton?
I don't think so.
Not right now, but maybe once we see what happens in camp.
I am so excited. I'm so excited for these.
Look at
running
you.
backs. It's
You're
gonna be.
geeked up.
I want to draft at least 2 of them. I really do. You know, I think
Well,
there's
all right. So you're the excited one. When do you want to do it? What round?
Yeah, as soon as there's like it's almost like the same group as last year. It's like Alvin Kamara is almost the end of the running backs that you feel very comfortable with. Then you get to the older guys, the James Connors, the Aaron Jones. Once we get to that range, so I think that's going to be round 5. Round 5 or later, top 60 picks, or getting to like 50 or later.
You're also a big Pacheco guy. Are you taking Pacheco over all of them?
Another winner.
Yes.
Yes, he is another winner.
I think so. I really think that, what we saw from Pacheco last year is, I'm not going to hold it against him. Jamie, you always talk about those first 2 games for Pacheco. I think he was on his way to a really big season.
And again, what Andy Reid said to me at the league meetings, like you're going to see him, better version of him. I would probably lean a couple of these guys over Pacheco right now, but that's the range. I mean, I think you're looking at it, like you mentioned James Conner, the tail end of that for me will probably be like Aaron Jones, but like, you're looking at this group now. It got a lot better. It got a lot better, so if you are going to, take the hero RB, 0 RB route, like you got a lot better options, when you're talking about getting into that round 5 through 7 range of, whenever you're going to look to get that either first running back or second running back, and you can, go receiver for your first 3 picks, quarterback, tight end, whatever, and then 3 or 4 running backs in a row and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. Oh,
And again, like some of the guys that got pushed down, the Jalen Warrens of the world that got pushed down into, the high end flex range.
How many of these running backs, Judkins, Henderson, Harvey, Kaleb Johnson, are you taking over Tyrone Tracy, who I guess you could call a winner?
Yes.
All of them. Maybe not Kaleb Johnson, but all the others.
I'm ready to take Kaleb Johnson out of Tyrone Tracy.
Let's go to our next Twitter poll question. It's about the wide receivers. I could not fit, obviously, all of the day 2 wide receivers, but who are you drafting first in half PPR? I didn't put Luther Bird in here. I really don't think he would have won this poll. He's going to the Bears. But Jayden Higgins, he was the first receiver drafted, and he was drafted 34th overall. That's a really good spot. I mean, Lab McConkey was right around there. T. Higgins was right around there. Michael Thomas, I think, was around 40th. But early round 2 receivers, some of them are really good. So Jayden Higgins to Houston, Trey Harris to the Chargers, Jack Bech to the Raiders, and Kyle Williams, who was a 3rd-round pick, going to the Patriots. The other 3 were 2nd-round picks. Higgins to Houston, Trey Harris to the Chargers, Jack Bech to the Raiders, Kyle Williams to New England. And this is a very close poll. Everyone between 20% and 32% on Twitter. Trey Harris is the leader right now, followed closely by Jack Bech and Jayden Higgins, who are basically tied, and Kyle Williams to the Patriots. He's in last, but still at 20%. So very even here with only 420 votes. Yeah, 420 votes, man. Dave, what's your vote here?
Tell me you've never mind. I'm going to vote for Malik Neighbors' high school quarterback, and that's Trey Harris. I think I don't think he's a perfect prospect by any stretch, and I do worry about the deep speed, injury history, but he's tall, he's lean, he can track the football well, he can turn back to the quarterback, he can run some routes. He's got to work on that. And his competition on the outside is Mike Williams, who's older and slower, and Quentin Johnston, who 1 week can deliver double-digit catches and the next week go completely catchless. So I'm hopeful that Trey Harris can be a helpful part of fantasy teams. And for now, I would take him over Golden, but they're both in that same range. What did I say yesterday with Golden? Round 10 is when I'd take him and put him on the bench and just kind of see what happens. That's how I feel about Harris. And I wish I could feel that way about Bech, because I really, talent-wise, I think he's up there. I think he's fantastic. I like him better than Harris. but he's sharing with Bowers, he's sharing with Myers, and the whole complexion of this Raiders offense changed the second they drafted Ashton Genty. So I'm worried about just how much upside there is for Bech. To me, right now, and I can obviously change this, but there are 4 receivers so far that have been drafted that I would consider taking round 10 or sooner. You already know 2 of them, Harris and Golden. The other 2 were guys that were in the top 10.
Wait. Oh, okay. Hunter and McMillan.
Hunter
Okay.
and Ted.
So can you, all right. So just to summarize, the 4 receivers that right now Dave would consider in the first 10 rounds of a fantasy draft are Hunter, McMillan, Trey Harris, and Matthew Golden.
In redraft. Yes.
In redraft. Yeah, I haven't done any dynasty yet. We got to wrap our head around that. Sorry, Schaefer, can we get the poll up again? I want to get Jamie's thoughts on it here. Who are you drafting first in half PPR? Jayden Higgins to the Texans, Trey Harris to the Chargers, Jack Bech to the Raiders, Kyle Williams to the Patriots.
Bech for me. He could be the number 1 receiver there. He's not going to be the number 1 guy in targets, but I mean, I love what the Raiders are doing right now. I mean, they get their quarterback upgrade. They get, hopefully an upgraded offensive coach. I think that'll be the case with, Chip Kelly coming in there to call plays. And, Geno Smith leaning on these guys and looking at what the, again, path to opportunity is, so Jacoby Myers, I think, has been a very solid player and, maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves because he was good at the end of his New England tenure. He was good in, Las Vegas in tandem with Devontae Adams. He was very good last year as well and can play a complementary role. Bech can come in and be the number 1 receiver, so I don't see that. At least I hope not in, Los Angeles with the Chargers. I hope that's still McConkey. I don't disagree with anything Dave said, in terms of what Harris can do on the outside and, be a strong threat for Justin Herbert. You talk about Genty revamping the offense there. I think, the Chargers also told us what they want to do with their backfield too, signing Najee Harris and drafting Omarion Hampton, so they're going to be, still a run dominant team as well. So to me, I just look at, Bech as somebody who come in and be number 2 in targets. I hope it's not number 1 because that's going to really, be a problem for Brock Bowers, but
something bad happened to Brock Bowers if that happens.
So I just like the opportunity there for him. So this was a great landing spot. I think a great draft for the Raiders so far, excuse me. And he's my favorite of this group.
Yeah, I don't know who my favorite is. It's like the running backs. It's a very tough call for me. I'm not sleeping on Higgins though for the Texans or on any of them. Kyle Williams, I think, has the best opportunity. And when I looked at those 11 wide receivers, I'll make it 10 without Tyreek Hill, 10 wide receivers drafted on day 2 or 3 who finished top 24 over the last 10 seasons. Opportunity really stood out when I analyzed their situations. There were some players who came in and had to really fight for targets, like Chase Claypool, who had the Steelers threw 41 passes per game. I think they led the NFL in pass attempts, and Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and who else was it? Juju, I think. They were all, had a lot of targets. So that he wasn't an example, but most of these guys weren't really fighting with a lot of players for targets. I think, like McLaurin, for example, could even go to a horrible offense and still finish as a top 24 wide receiver in non-PPR it was for him because he was the only good receiver there. I look at Trey Harris and I kind of feel like that might be what he's stepping into. He's got Kyle Williams. It might be what Kyle Williams is stepping into here. He's obviously got Diggs 31 coming off a torn ACL, or is he 32 coming off a torn ACL? I think he's 31.
He is going to be
32 by the end of the season.
32 coming off a torn ACL
by the end of the season, yes.
And no one else. And I think an exciting quarterback. So don't sleep on him. But Higgins, you really just need the bounce back from CJ Stroud. Stroud was so bad on deep balls last year. Can Higgins help him with that? Higgins was really bad on deep balls last year at Iowa State. I think his quarterback had a lot to do with that. But I just want to stress that opportunity. I want fantasy managers to think about that. Who's got the opportunity to not have a lot of target competition? You probably don't think that about Jayden Higgins. That's probably the issue here. But Kyle Williams, he's got that opportunity. All right. Yeah, but then again, it's got to be the right player, right? So did Jalen Polk last year. Can't just be anyone with the opportunity. All right, let's go to our tight end Twitter poll here. Actually, let's go to commercial break. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
This is what you were made
welcome back. Who are you drafting first in half PPR? I don't even know the results of this one. I'm going to be curious to see. And I wanted to throw Mason Taylor on here, but Twitter polls, you only do 4 options. So who are you drafting first in half PPR? Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren,
Why
Terrance,
would you Ferguson ahead of Taylor on the
Yeah,
poll?
really, that's a weird one.
Because I think being on the Rams is so much better than being on the Jets. I think for this year.
Okay.
Was this even a question? You disagree with that? You think I should have put Mason Taylor on there?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think Mason Taylor has a chance of being the number 1 tight end this year. I think
Yeah.
Ferguson.
Neither does Terrance Ferguson.
I don't know, man. Like Ferguson was drafted 10 picks after him or something. I don't not even.
Good.
I don't,
I'm thrilled for him.
he's really good. I think you're sleeping on him. He was 4 picks. He was 4 picks after Mason Taylor, drafted by the Rams, who have a very, very good track record of making draft picks. Could he be second on the team in targets? I think so.
No.
Ferguson?
Oh, no, you got Devontae Adams there.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Does he get more targets than Tutu Atwell?
Yes, I think so.
Does he get more targets than Tyler Higbee?
Well, yes, I think so. All right, fine. I should have put Mason Taylor on there. Should I do it again?
Yes.
All right. Well,
No, you
anyway,
only got 354 votes.
It was going to be Loveland or what? It was going to be Loveland or Warren anyway, winning this poll. Loveland got 50% of the vote. Schaefer voted for Tyler Warren. Almost no love for Elijah Arroyo. Could he be second on the team in targets?
Yes.
He could.
Okay. All right. Well, this was a boring one, but
Well, maybe you should ask us how we would rank our top 4 tight ends in redraft.
Yeah. Go ahead. Rank your top 4 tight ends in redraft.
I have absolutely no idea. I'm kidding.
Top 4
I've
tight
got
ends in redraft?
this will be interesting because
Bowers, McBride.
No, rookies.
the rookies. Warren is going to be first for me. Loveland's going to be second. And then it will be some combination of Arroyo and Taylor. I kind of like where Arroyo's upside is compared to Taylor overall.
Oh, that's not even a question. I am drafting this year Elijah Arroyo over Mason Taylor.
You are or not?
Absolutely.
All right.
Oh,
Because
okay.
a lot of people love Mason Taylor.
Oh,
Yeah, I
it's
think
not
that's
Got
over
its
Arroyo.
fans.
It's about Fields. It's about Fields and
Fields in
Garrett Wilson.
2023 helped Cole Kmet average over 10 PPR.
Oh,
points.
Cole Kmet. That's such a nothing year. What a nothing year that was. Like
Oh, I'm sorry that's still a top 12 tight end. that
it
we're not
is. But
talking
that's
about.
the upside. That's the upside. It was.
I don't think Arroyo has that much more upside. I don't think Noah Fant is going away.
I could see it happening
What
eventually.
save if they cut him.
I mean, honestly, I don't really think either of those guys are going to be that good this
And
year.
even if he does go away, AJ Barner is still there. But to me, I view Arroyo differently than those guys. Well, certainly differently than Barner. But to me, he's more like Fant, more of a move tight end, and a guy that brings some speed and a mismatch problem to an offense that doesn't have a ton of speed at wide receiver. Like they've got MVS, he's going to take the top off theoretically. Arroyo is going to be. I think they've got designs for him, and this is the type of scheme where move tight ends can do very, very well.
Not a great pronunciation of Elijah Arroyo's last name, by the way, in the draft tonight.
Oh, I know.
Arroyo.
Oh, dude, Noah Fant could be a goner. They save almost $9 million against the cap
Really?
if they dump him. Yep.
I happen to be a big Elijah Arroyo fan. I think he's really
Right.
talented.
Like, I don't want to let my bias get in the way here, especially since, and this is interesting, like both Arroyo and Taylor did not have great stats in college. And Arroyo really only had one big year. Taylor started for 3 years at LSU. He just ran a lot of routes, didn't get a ton of targets until his last year there. So they're both projection type players. And I don't know if I'm necessarily drafting either one of them, maybe with like my third to last pick. Maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well, obviously, if they cut Tyler Higbee, that might change things a little bit, but they still do have that Devontae Adams guy. Okay. News and notes real quick. The Steelers still hopeful for Aaron Rodgers. They think a decision could be coming soon. Liam Cohen, the head coach of the Jaguars, said the plan is for Travis Hunter to play on offense primarily and learn the defense throughout the offseason. He didn't say snap counts or anything like that. Obviously, it's all fluid, but that's what Liam Cohen said. Travis Hunter primarily on offense. And Nick Saban called Mason Taylor, Jets tight end now. He called him an outstanding player and said it was his biggest recruiting mistake when he was at Alabama. So, yeah, we all like Mason Taylor. Just don't love the Jets situation there. So remember, Nick Saban said, according to Brian Dable last year on Hard Knocks, that the two players who were a problem for him in 2023 were Brock Bowers and Malik Neighbors. So him praising Mason Taylor, saying it was his biggest recruiting mistake at Alabama. That's pretty interesting. All right, let's go position by position, talk about the quarterbacks and running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, see if we have time for offensive line. Quarterbacks, so Ward and Jackson Dart yesterday to the Titans and the Giants. Tyler Shough to the Saints in round 2. Jalen Milroe to the Seahawks in round 3. And Dillon Gabriel to the Browns in round 3. Shough going 52 picks before Milroe, 54 picks before Dillon Gabriel. Jamie, what'd you think about these quarterbacks?
I mean, everybody hates Shedeur Sanders, huh? It's just crazy. Look, they're maybe Tyler Shough can be the starter depending on the Derek Carr situation, whether it's, he's gone or his shoulder. So that's really the one you want to keep an eye on there. Clearly, Dillon Gabriel can compete for the starting job in Cleveland, but does he beat out Joe Flacco right away? Is this one of those situations where early in the season, if Flacco's struggling, they turn to Gabriel, or do they turn to Kenny Pickett first? I was actually surprised that he was the guy that they chose. I thought, from what you're hearing, that it would be McCord. I mean, Milroe's the wild card here, but you're going to have to wait or need an injury, because of what they just paid Sam Darnold. So it could be a really good long-term situation, especially for dynasty managers. You want to take a chance on him and see how this pans out in potentially maybe a year, but most likely 2. And if Darnold just reverts back to pre-Minnesota Darnold, then maybe he gets an opportunity to, do what Jalen Hurts did, for example, take over and run away with the job, because we know the fantasy upside is there. Will the NFL upside be there? So I like the move by Seattle. So Milroe, somebody that in Superflex, dynasty leagues, will be very interesting to see when he goes. But yeah, these are all backups.
I'm just reading right now. Sam Darnold, it does not appear that he has any guaranteed money after this year. He has a $15 million March roster bonus in 2026, according to ESPN. His contract is guaranteed for injury now. But if he doesn't get injured, they could cut Sam Darnold after year 1. All right, running backs. I think we talked about it all. If there's anything you want to add. All right, give me projection. How many carries for all 4 of these guys? How many carries in year 1 for Quinshon Judkins?
215.
14 per game, with a little bit more toward the end of the year.
If you think I can do 14 times 17.
Yeah, that's
very wrong. Let's see. 14, 140, 280, it's 28.
It's
so that's 248, 240-ish.
21.
Let's see. 14.
LMNOP.
238.
I'm really doing math. It's 12:16 in the morning.
How many carries for TreVeyon Henderson?
I'm scared to answer now because I don't want to do any more math.
That's pretty cool.
175.
12 times 17. You said carries, right? 12. I'll break out my.
How many carries?
Just now.
Wait, 200. Let's say 230 carries for Judkins. How many catches for Judkins?
18.
20.
22. How many catches for TreVeyon Henderson?
Judkins gets to 255 carries.
TreVeyon Henderson.
You tell me that right now. He's my favorite. How many catches for Henderson? 35.
Oh,
40.
Oh,
45.
Then he's a bust in year 1. I mean, what 100? What did you say? How many carries? 170 carries. I don't even know what you said. Started with 100 with 1.
I think 200 carries, but 45 catches.
Oh, that's not enough for me. I want to see I want to see a 50 to 60 catch season from TreVeyon Henderson.
This is a good exercise. I'm glad we're doing this. Except for the part.
Josh Jacobs played every game 2022, and he had 53 catches, I think. Obviously, Josh McDaniels has a great history with James White and, gosh, who else? Like Kevin Falk, Shane Vereen. I mean, he's had 80 catch guys in the past. I don't know if Henderson is that kind of player, but I want to see them use him that way. RJ Harvey, carries and catches.
180 and 30.
205 and 30.
30!
He's not a polished pass catcher or third down back.
No, but that's what they do. They throw to their running backs all the time.
Yeah, they might throw to somebody else.
They will.
Yeah, that's why I'm only giving him 30 catches.
I'm giving him 40. I'm very optimistic today. Kaleb Johnson. Kaleb Johnson for Pittsburgh. Carries and catches.
215.
250 carries. 7
He has
catches.
more than Najee had last year.
Yeah.
Wow.
What did Najee have?
236.
Impressive that you remembered that.
I just wrote the story on.
Oh, you're wrong.
Yeah, 263 and 36.
263 and 36 receptions.
Yeah, Kaleb Johnson's not going to sniff 36 receptions.
I mean, if Najee can, why not Kaleb Johnson?
Because Najee was what, a 70 catch guy his rookie season?
Yeah, but he's not a good pass catcher. He just benefited from being there. All right, wide receivers. So we had Jayden Higgins. What do you think of this pick overall and what it means for Houston and all the relevant guys?
Means Tank Dell's probably not playing in 2025, and who knows if he's ever going to play again for the Texans. And Christian Kirk is just going to be a rental for you.
Higgins is going to be a perimeter receiver who plays opposite Nico Collins for the rest of his life. And that makes me sad because Higgins is really good. Great hands, 3 drops over the last 2 years. That's 209 targets.
Wow.
At Iowa State. Big dude, 6'4". He's kind of like Nico Collins in that regard, but he's not a burner. Quicker than fast. Just big guy catch radius, kind of like a glorified tight end playing wide receiver. Noel is the one that kind of intrigues me because he is fast. And he's like, I was about to say, he's a thicker Tank Dell because everybody's thicker than Tank Dell. He's 180 pounds, good speed, can play in the slot, very quick, small hands. So he's got a little bit more of a drops issue than Jayden Higgins does. But I kind of like Noel better in redraft and maybe even in
wow.
Yeah.
Well, but no, in Dynasty you're saying? In redraft, in
redraft and Dynasty.
Isn't he just buried behind Christian Kirk this year, Jalen Noel?
He might be, but
he's a slot receiver.
Jayden Higgins is buried behind Nico Collins.
Oh, he's the number 2 receiver. He's on the outside.
Yeah, but one of these guys can take the top off. Look, I don't think I'm drafting either Texans rookie wide receiver. So it's semantics about who I would really take first. But in Dynasty, I think I might take Noel first.
Well, I guess I would just say if we thought Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell could all have good seasons last year, they were all picked in the top 6 or 7 rounds. You know, why can't Jayden Higgins, who was the 5th receiver off the board and the 34th, I mean, if you count Travis Hunter as a receiver, 5th receiver off the board, 34th overall pick in the draft, I could spin a more optimistic case for him, Dave. I mean, I think the opportunity is there for him. I don't know if he's gonna have a great year, but to be fantasy relevant at least. Jamie, how you feeling about Higgins?
I mean, I think he's the second best Texans receiver by the end of the season, and maybe right out of the gate. You know, like you said, if CJ Stroud bounces back to what he was as a rookie, like there's so much upside here. So while Collins had his breakout season in 2023, Tank Dell was putting up some pretty significant numbers. And so there's a pretty clear path here for him to have, you know, be one of those guys that when we talk about at the end of the season, like is he approaching 900 yards to your magic number as a rookie?
Mhm.
Like he's going to be in that conversation. He's got that type of talent. So I'm glad Dave and I are in a couple dynasty leagues together.
Does it
Yeah.
bug you that Higgins isn't anywhere close to the same type of receiver as Dell, though?
No, but you don't necessarily have to be in terms of what your target volume could be, and he may have a better chance to get some easier opportunities than Tank Dell did in his rookie season. So, Christian Kirk's missed a lot of time the last couple of years, so he can maybe do a few different things as well in the offense. So, I'm optimistic. I think it was a good landing spot. Go back to your question with the Twitter poll of those 4 guys. I think it's close between Harris and Bech and Bech and Higgins, at least for me.
I put in my notes that Higgins' opportunity with the Texans reminds me a little bit of Juju Smith-Schuster, who was one of those 11 wide receivers in the past decade that's finished in the top 24 while being drafted on day 2 or 3. Well, yeah, on day 2 or 3. It reminds me a little bit of him in 2017. You had a stud in Antonio Brown. And then the other guys who were catching passes were Martavis Bryant and Le'Veon Bell. So if Higgins can come in and be good, I don't see why he can't, be productive. Because you had Ben Roethlisberger, who was an established quarterback, right? You're not talking about some crap quarterback here. So I just wanted to throw that comparison out. I thought I could see that kind of path where, as Jamie said, by the end of the year, he's the second best receiver for the Texans. All right, who else do we got here? We only got through one guy, so we have a lot of players. Luther Burden for the Bears, undraftable right now.
In the same late round, gamble that you would take on, Ibuka, a little bit easier path to see him being productive, but it's just tough. It's really tough. It feels like what we're gonna get from him is what you got from Odunze last year.
We got Trey Harris of the Chargers. I know you guys like that. Any knock here for Lab McConkey?
Nope, not for me.
I don't think so. I mean, again, if he's dynamic, then he's going to command more targets than, let's say, Quentin Johnston did. The Mike Williams addition, as Jim Harbaugh said, Justin Herbert was extremely ecstatic, but for a guy that's in his early 30s at this point, coming off, a couple of years of knee and injury-prone situations, that wasn't productive at all with the Jets in his short stint there. Like, I don't know. I think this is a great spot for Harris to be in.
All right. Next wide receiver off the board is Jack Bech. Jamie, you're pretty pumped about him. So I keep trying to do this with no success to get someone to be worried about Brock Bowers, even though I'm not really worried about Brock Bowers. But yeah, now we got a running back. They're gonna run the ball. We got run heavy coaches here.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you could see it, where there's, and again, I'll go back to when you brought this up. It was either yesterday or pre-draft or I'm sorry, I guess about yesterday with Genty. The real question is, are you taking Bowers or McBride?
Right.
Because they're not going to, I think, slip past Kittle, which at least for me is tight end 3. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be based on ADP, probably barring a holdout. Look, if you were to say right now, McBride can get to 6 touchdowns, which may be all he has in his career. But if he can get to 6 touchdowns, I would take McBride.
Yeah.
So the gap is closed. Bowers was a borderline first-round pick for me. McBride, late second. Okay. Bowers now more mid-round 2, and McBride is still kind of in that range. So it's not as rosy as it was when last year ended, because you got better run game, you got better talent around him. You also have better quarterbacks, so that helps. And, again, more creative play caller, but it's just so hard to gamble against what that talent could be, for what he looked like as a rookie, and just hopefully years to come of that type of quality production.
I'm nervously going to take McBride over Bowers in full PPR, but it is very, very close. But it will not be the case in non-PPR.
So what about Jacoby Myers? Would you draft Jacoby Myers or Jack Bech?
Myers.
Still Myers, but, again, similar to the Houston situation, it wouldn't surprise me by the end of the season if Bech is the best wide receiver there.
Okay, Kyle Williams to the Patriots as we get to round 3, 69th overall. A guy I really regret not talking about on our wide receiver preview shows. I'm sorry about that. He's out of Washington State, 5'11", 190 pounds. He's got good speed, ran a 4.4 40, and had 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns last year in 13 games for Washington State. You guys share my optimism that there's some sneaky potential here for Kyle Williams. Do you feel that too, or no?
Definitely. He's got an opportunity to lead the Patriots wide receivers. Well, be second. It depends on Stephon Diggs, obviously. If Diggs is healthy and his old self, that guy's going to run away with all the targets. But if Diggs is a slower version of himself and it takes him a month to get ready for the season, then, yeah, the door's open a little bit for Kyle Williams to be that guy. But he's got to go there. He's got to practice. He's got to play great, and he's got to stand out. The last few rookie wide receivers that the Patriots have taken, and I say last few facetiously, it's been a bunch, have not worked out. They have not been great. But Kyle Williams certainly deserves to be drafted in redraft in that same late round pick range as Harris, Golden, Bech, but behind those guys.
All right.
How have rookie wide receivers done for McDaniels? I'm going to guess not great.
Yeah. I can go back and look, but I'm going to guess exactly that. Not great.
I just want to point out, rookie wide receivers usually don't do well. So if they're not drafted in the first round, they usually don't do well. And even if they are, it's a toss-up. I can't really think of. I mean, N'Keal Harry was one of them.
Oh God, that was such a terrible pick.
I can't think of any others. I'm sure there have been. But yeah. Isaac Tesla going to Detroit. Pat Bryant going to Denver. Jalen Knoll going to Houston. Savion Williams to Green Bay. Ty Felton to Minnesota. Jamie, do we have a single draftable guy in redraft? Isaac Tesla to Detroit. Pat Bryant to Denver. Jalen Knoll to Houston. Savion Williams to Green Bay. Ty Felton to Minnesota.
Bryant, maybe. Just because you look at the receivers there for Denver, I know there should be some optimism about Marvin Mims, but for whatever reason, we've seen Sean Payton not necessarily give him the type of opportunities that he's, I think, deserved. Devon Vele, may or may not have an opportunity as well, but there is clearly a path for somebody to take that number 2 receiver role and maybe run away with it. Clearly, Evan Ingram is there now, so different playmaking tight end. But look, there's reasons to watch all of these guys. We could sit here and say Matthew Golden and the chance that he has in Green Bay. Well, maybe we do get that from Savion Williams as well. Another guy come in and push the Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks of the world aside with Christian Watson not there and get a chance to be, a playmaker for a receiving core that is, as the running back there said, missing an alpha. So I don't think Williams is that guy, but very telling that the Packers never invest heavily in wide receiver, and first 2 days they take 2.
Okay. Dave, what'd you find?
The all-time leader among rookie wide receivers under Josh McDaniels in targets is Aaron Dobson with 75.
Okay.
So I think that's a number Kyle Williams can beat. I think he can get more than 75 targets, but not a single one of these stiffs had more than 9.1 PPR points per game. This does not excite me very much about Kyle Williams, and maybe he isn't necessarily worth a pick. But guess what, guys? We've got time. We'll see how he does in minicamp and training camp.
All right, tight ends.
It could be good for Mario Douglas.
Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren are first-round picks. We have Mason Taylor in round 2, Terrance Ferguson 4 picks later to the Rams, Mason Taylor to the Jets. Quick Twitter poll here. Who you draft first this year in half PPR? Mason Taylor on the Jets, Elijah Arroyo on Seattle. Right now, only 181 votes, 54% Mason Taylor, 46% Elijah Arroyo. So Arroyo was okay. I would go Arroyo, but I wonder what Schaefer, who would you take, Arroyo or Mason Taylor?
And I'd pass on both.
You take Shedeur Sanders. And then, Dave, let's talk about Harold Fannin Jr. We haven't talked about him. This guy led the country in receptions and receiving yards. He goes to the Cleveland Browns, 67th overall. Yeah, bummer but what a player he is.
I mean, I believe he set the FBS record for catches and yards by a tight end in a single season. And he is potentially the long-term replacement for David Njoku in Cleveland, and that could happen as soon as 2026. So Njoku will still do his thing. Harold Fannin is going to have to play like a madman in training camp to earn snaps alongside Njoku and turn all of those 3 receiver sets in Cleveland into 2 tight end sets. Can he do it? It's possible. Would I love him if David Njoku got traded or missed some time? Yeah, probably. I think he's a good player. But until that happens, this is another player I just don't see myself drafting in redraft. Dynasty, I'm taking him ahead of Arroyo and Taylor.
As far as the offensive line goes, the Texans took a tackle early in the second round. The Raiders at picks 98 and 99, they traded for both of those picks to draft offensive tackles.
Interesting players too.
And both of them got A's or A minuses from our Chris Trapasso. One thing I want to talk about that we pretty much skipped
Did you
is
just third person yourself as a grade?
No.
Can you say A's or A minuses?
A's or A minuses.
Oh.
I think we should talk about Tyler Shough just a little bit because he really could he really be the starting quarterback for the Saints this year with this Derek Carr situation?
So when I did the report on him, I think he showed enough on film last year at Louisville and strictly last year that made me believe that a team that's salary cap strapped or transitioning at quarterback, they could turn to him and use him this year. And if he's great, then great. Maybe they've got their guy long term. And if he stinks, then great. You'll find another quarterback in the 2026 draft. And I think that's what the Saints are going to do. Certainly experienced, older gentleman, injury prone. He's hurt his shoulders a bunch. It's funny how he has all these injuries, a couple of shoulder injuries and a broken leg, all from running out of the pocket. Never from being sacked, never from throwing too much or getting hit while he's throwing. It's always been when he's running. So my guess is he won't do a lot of that. But if his competition is Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, this dude's starting for New Orleans in week 1.
26 years old in September.
Yep.
Absolutely miserable completion percentage. I don't understand. He completed about 62% of his passes. I don't have the stat in front of me, but I don't get how a 26-year-old could do that. But in college, horrible. Bad quarterback class. But don't get too excited. Any thoughts on Shedeur Sanders?
I don't think we should waste our time.
It's the story of the day. I thought it was an overblown story yesterday, but him not being drafted in the first 3 rounds, now I get it. Now it's a story.
Yeah, it's look, the interview process may have been horrible for him, based on the things you're hearing. I don't think at this point now it's a talent thing. Like if you're taking chances on the guys that are getting drafted right now, he certainly belongs in the conversation.
Yeah.
So look, it's clearly there's some of the stuff that's being said is ridiculous. I don't think he's being blackballed by any stretch. It's just a silly conversation. But we're now in backup quarterback territory, which nobody thought. I think there was the idea of New Orleans at 9, Pittsburgh at 21. Somebody else maybe buying back into the first round like the Giants did that would say, okay, we'll take a chance on him just to see. If I'm the Rams at this point, for example, why not? You have the 2 first-round picks next year now to go get your quarterback of the future if you want to, since Stafford's basically playing on a one year-to-year basis. If this kid shows you anything, you did a great reclamation project on Baker Mayfield, for just going in your system. I think if you give any player great coaching, he can make himself something if he's got the talent. And I still think Sanders has some talent. So to me, that'd be a great destination for him at this point because he's going to be a backup. He's not going to get a chance to start.
The only thing I'll add is if you have the time, watch his game against BYU. I've said it before. I'll say it again.
He should not have played the bowl game.
He looked like he had no clue what he was doing out there.
It really, I just wonder if he didn't play in the bowl game, if he could have been a first round pick or something. That was
no, because there's definitely something going on top of what the general public knows.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's worth talking about on a fantasy show when he doesn't have a team yet. Once he's on a team, we can talk about him a little bit more. I know it's a great big story and all that, but no one's drafting him.
The content police are here.
It's 12:38 in the morning. I've been up since 6 a.m. We're talking about a guy who wasn't even drafted, who's not going to get drafted in our fan. I'm done. Bye.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Dave can leave. I took a great nap today. We were all very tired. And the weather is so nice in New York that I don't have to put the air on in my house. And I didn't even need a blanket.
God, let's go back to talking about Shough
Sanders.
Your nap and the weather. And
I didn't even need a blanket. I didn't need the air conditioning, the heat, or a blanket to nap. It was absolutely perfect. Just what a beautiful afternoon.
There's nothing better than taking a nap.
Oh, especially after a long night. I'll be taking a nap tomorrow. All right, folks. Have a great day. We'll talk to you after day 3.
What time is your nap tomorrow?
I don't know. I have a tennis match, so I'm not sure. I'm
calling you at 6 a.m.
No. Oh, man,
live streaming it. Thomas set up a live stream for 6 a.m. We're calling at him every hour.
Later, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
By the way, this is
good and the weather's so
the nicest
nice.
shirt you've worn in a long time.
I went out to dinner tonight. Yeah.
Where'd you go?
I went to Bear Burger. Do you have Bear Burger in Florida?
No.
It's a burger place.
Really? Wow.
I got a chicken sandwich. All right, we'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
Chicken sandwich at a burger place while wearing a salmon colored shirt.
Yeah, well, I bought burger meat, so I'm going to make burgers at home on Saturday. So I was like, I'm not going to double up. Okay, now we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.